Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. We are back with the Evermore podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and I'm joined by a man with a voice as smooth as a Bruno Guimaraes pass. We've got Di Reese in the house, and he's got a ticket to ride. PK is back from a fresh ear bending on Trust TV. How are we doing, lads? You okay?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well.
Good. You all right?
Yes, very good, mate. Very good. I am evermore on tour tonight, as I've said. I am on location in parts of wonderful UK. Very close to a place close to Di's heart, on the borders of Wales. So very nice indeed. Yes, I know. I'm checking for Gareth Bale, mate. I don't know if he's kicked around because I know he's got a bit of spare time, mate. But yes, I'm doing my best. Hopefully, my Wi-Fi will hold out through the show, guys. We've got loads to get stuck into, some spicy topics, I know, which we're all going to disagree on, which I love. I love a bit of that. It'd be boring if we all agree. Just before we do, a little reminder, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We are over 2,500 subscribers now, so massive thank you to everybody who's done that. Unbelievable for the channel. We're only 14 months old or something like that, so to get the numbers we've got is incredible. So thank you everybody who smashed that button. There's loads of room for you. All free content. We don't charge anybody for this kind of stuff. It's rough as toast out there. We don't want you to spend your hard-earned money listening to us talk a load of waffle about this amazing club. So just make sure you come and join us, and it's all free of charge. And we are live tonight, as a few people have already jumped in the comments. Feel free to get your comments in. We'd love to engage with you. We've got Old Angry Noob Gamer. You always test me with that one, mate. Always test me with that one. I love that side. We've also got Mr. Forster. Is it safe to come out yet? Yes. We're not talking about tickets to ride tonight, Lee. Hopefully not. Roger's in the house, and we've also got 2 Coin as well. So let's get stuck in, lads. So the first topic we're going to talk about is, I suppose it's a bit of a sad topic, really, the injury to Joe Willock. Just our stat man was asleep behind the wheel tonight, bless him. His man flu struck again, so there's no fancy super duper slides from Mark tonight. So I'm just going to wing it on the old FB ref here. So we're talking about Joe Willock missing the game, obviously the weekend, which is a huge blow for us. Joe Willock is such an influential figure to this team. Just to pick out a couple of these stats, really, then I'll come to you guys for your opinion. I think the biggest thing for Joe Willock is kind of progressive carries in this team. So out of all the midfielders in his position, he is in the 90th percentile for progressive carries. So he's nearly on 3 carries per game. And that's just how good he gets us up the pitch. Blocks, he's in the 97th percentile. So, I mean, the work he puts in kind of goes a little bit unnoticed, doesn't it, at times? And how much of a blow is it going to be this weekend when Liverpool aren't particularly in great form to lose Joe Willock's energy, mate?
Huge blow, mate. Huge blow. I think one of our big assets, that the way we've been playing, I appreciate we're on a slightly sticky patch now, but in general, is our effectiveness in transition. I was watching back a load of goals yesterday, looking forward to arguing with you about Dan Burn, and some of the goals we've scored in changeovers in possession is amazing. And Joe Willock is so good at that driving the team forward, being dynamic, getting running with the ball at his feet. Not many of our players do that as often as we would like them to, and I think he's a huge blow. I remember at the start of the season when we were talking about him, people umming and ahhing, whether he should be in the side, whether he should be starting games or not. I think he's demonstrated in the last couple of months just how important he is. And if he's not going to be fit for Saturday, as looks to be the case, then I think we're going to see just how big a loss he is.
Yeah, it's a real blow, PK, isn't it? I mean, to Coin is saying there, he thinks we've got a similar replacement in Gordon. I mean, I'm not too sure about that. I think Gordon's a slightly different player, mate. I mean, losing Joe Willock, as Di said there, mate, is a massive blow, isn't it? I mean, some people still think about the goals. He's not scoring the goals and all that, but I think he's become such a better all-around footballer for the team, hasn't he, Joe Willock, in the time he's had with Eddie Howe, and at a time, like Di said, at a time where we need to win the ball back and get up the field. Losing his energy is a real big blow, mate, and possibly will he be out for the final as well? That's a massive worry, isn't it?
I don't know what his injury status is. Actually, I'm sure we'll hear a bit more on Friday from Eddie Howe as to what's wrong with him, or he might be smoking mirrors as per usual. I don't know, but for me, I love Willock. I think he's probably our most energetic midfielder. I think he's up and down that pitch incredibly, and I think I've said it before, I'm a massive fan on him actually on the left. I think when St. Maximin was out injured and wasn't playing at all, I think that transfer between Joe Linton and Willock, they kept alternating, didn't they, down the left. I'm just a massive fan of him down the left because he's so dynamic and he's so energetic. I mean, I'll go back to the goal that he created in that 92nd minute at home to Leicester when Bruno scored the diving header. That was all Willock, wasn't it? It wasn't the best cross in the world, but God, that was all Willock. He's quick, he's strong, he's dynamic. He needs to learn to shoot a little bit better. I can't remember what away game it was that he skied a couple. Who was it?
That
It was
Southampton game, wasn't it?
Southampton, the League Cup.
It was.
He skied a couple, and someone else skied one as well. But long stuff, I think. But I think his overall game has got a lot better. He was on that mental goal. You know, 8. Did he score in 8 games in a row?
8 and 8, I think.
Basically,
it was. Yeah.
Basically to save Bruce's bacon. You like that one, Chris? Yeah. But he's going to be a big miss. I don't know how long he'll be out for, but he'll be a big miss because of his energy and his dynamism in that either central midfield role or wider out left. But also it'll bring a more difficult decision as to what to do with St. Maximin, which is, I guess, we'll come on to the preview side of Liverpool, can talk about that a little bit more. But personally, I would have had St. Maximin bench, to be honest, and would have had Gordon out left. But I think now with Willock out, he needs to bring Gordon into that more sort of attacking midfield role where Willock was sitting.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. We'll maybe touch a little bit about where Gordon could fit in to the equation. But I think one big thing that Joe Willock has given us is that press, that energy, isn't it, in the press? You know, he doesn't let anybody give an inch, really. You know, obviously Joe Litton's the master of the press, isn't he? You know, Bruno is great when he's there, but Willock often goes unnoticed by a lot of people. What I love about Willock the most is he looks fucked after the first 5 minutes of every game. Yeah, he's still got countless amounts of energy, which is just amazing.
He's super fit, isn't he? I mean, he's
so
a proper
fit.
athlete. I know when Eddie Howe did the bleep test stuff when he first got to the club, that Longstaff came out the fittest. But there's no way for me that Willock doesn't do the most kilometres on that pitch every week. No chance.
Yeah. Oh, he's brilliant. I mean, the only guy who might give him a run for his money is that nutter who runs up and down with the flag, possibly on the Gallagher. Maybe he gets a run for his money. But I think looking at the two different sides of the coin here. Now we're going to miss Willock massively at the weekend. I'll talk a little bit about who could come in maybe in that midfield berth. But the rumours were that his scheduled date on that injury website, which you can believe if you want to. I mean, I think it tells you Callum Wilson's going to be injured for 2 days and he's out for like 9 weeks or something like that. So, you know, like it goes up and down like a horse draws, doesn't it? But I think with Willock, he's supposed to be back for the 18th. Now, I don't think he'll play at the weekend at all, even if he thinks he's fit. And the benefit there, lads, might be if you rest him and he gets a good week's rest and he comes back in the final full of energy and, you know, a bit more refreshed eyes. You think that could be a real asset, him and Bruno coming back fresh in that game?
I think so. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because on one hand, you're right, it is good for him to be fresh. Equally, for the first time he's going to be playing a competitive game of football after doing a hammy, is going to be, you know, going back into a cup final. Then all of a sudden, you know, it's a big strain on your body. You probably can't quite play at 100% because you can't trust yourself properly. So I do think that solves as many problems as it creates, you know. I don't think he'll play on the weekend. I agree with you. I think the biggest thing that it underlines, however, is should we have sold John Joe Shelvey, and if we were going to, which we did, we really should have brought someone else in to replace him. I think that's the biggest issue for me here. I think we can talk about changes of shape or Gordon or whoever else, but I think the big issue for me here is we've lost 2 players, one through injury, one through suspension, and all of a sudden, really, we're now almost forced, I'd say, into changing to like a 4-2-3-1 against Liverpool on the weekend because we quite simply don't have any other options, really.
With threadbare, really. I mean, I've got to come to you on this one, PK, because I know you love him. The Jody Maradona. You know, me and Mark spoke about this on What's Going On. I know Di's mentioned this before on the show, and I tend to agree with him. Anderson's looked a little bit scared, a little bit daunted, I think, over kind of awed by his chance in the Premier League. I know when he come on the other day, he looked bright, but got at the edge of the box, he looked really nervous to shoot, but really nervous to have the ball. He's got a huge opportunity here, PK, to come into this team and throw a marker down and say, look, I'm here, I'm a serious part of this squad, I'm pushing people for a space. Do you think Eddie Howe will put faith in Anderson for the weekend, or do you think we're more likely to see a Gordon in there, potentially?
I don't know. For me, everything will hinge on whether he's got faith in St. Maximin playing again on Saturday out wide. You know, for me, his 60 minutes that he had against West Ham, I thought he was shit. He was given a lot of poor balls, to be honest, but I thought he was shit. He never came looking for the ball. It always sort of said, he's got this Eddie had said he's got this window to impress him. Effectively is what he said, isn't it? So he started him against Bournemouth. I thought, again, first 35, 40 minutes, I thought he was dreadful. And then he had that one piece of magic, didn't he, with that ball that he threaded through for Sean Longstaff. And then obviously the really good save bounced out for Miggy to get that equaliser. And all of a sudden, he hasn't got an assist, but he's got an assist, if that makes sense to you. So I think a lot of it will dictate. I think a lot of whether he's got the trust in Anderson will, is dictated as to whether he starts St. Maximum, which sounds a bit weird, right? But it's all about fitting the pieces into that jigsaw. The thing with the Jordi Maradona is, you and I were at the Atalanta game in pre-season, and he ran that game. I know
he did look brilliant in that game.
Beat them 1-0, didn't we? Chris scored a penalty. He ran that game, and he ran the game in Benfica that we lost as well. And everything was like, yeah, this guy looks really good. But the trouble we've got with him is that he's only getting cameos. So he's getting 15 minutes and 20 minutes. And now, what footballer can really make an influence coming on, unless you're a worldie coming back from injury? I think was Mbappe coming back from injury last night, and he made a massive difference for PSG in 15, 20 minutes, and he was like 30% fit, but he's a world-class footballer. Anderson's just trying to make his way with the club at the minute, and a lot of people have said he should have gone out on loan. Bloody glad he didn't go on loan now, Shelby having gone, and obviously Willock injured, etc. But at one point, he's going to have to give him a run. The cup final is more important than Saturday. It's, there's that age-old argument, top four or win a cup. I mean, I don't know what people in the comments are saying, if anything, but it's a cup every day of the week. It's to try and go and win a cup with fresh legs. We've looked tired and we've looked leggy the last few games. We've never really looked brilliant since the World Cup, other than that Leicester game where we were unbelievably good. You can't pick. Unfortunately, we've got 14 players, really, first team players. You kind pick them all every single week and expect them to do 80, 90 minutes. It's impossible. We've strengthened with Gordon, yes, but we haven't got enough players. Don't know what he'll do. If you remember the away game against Liverpool, he dropped the two centre-backs, didn't he? We dropped them. He rested them. He played Byrne and Lascelles at centre-half in that game as well. So will he make a few changes, or will he say, you know what, we've got a week. We've got a week until the cup final. That gives us plenty of preparation time, or to freshen the legs up again. Does he go for it again on Saturday? I don't really know. That's a real waffly round the houses answer as to what is he going to do with Anderson. I ain't got a fucking clue. But again, it for me, St. Maximum selection, yes or no, dictates whether Anderson gets in on Saturday.
That was politician-esque.
Sorry,
mate. Sorry,
waffling, man. It's been a long day.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of what PK said is true there, even though he has ultimately avoided the question. But I think ultimately, the reality of the situation is Anderson. I don't think he's good enough, and I think he might have been good enough under Bruce if he'd been given more time. But the way this project is progressing, he's not good enough. And the only reason he gets a start on Saturday for me is if we rest people. And I wonder if that's the only thing that I keep coming back to about our formation and everything else. Is it worth resting Joe Linton, letting Longstaff, who seems to have endless energy, and Anderson play midfield, play a 3 and a 1 in front of them, and just say, we'll have a go at him and we'll see what happens, because we just cannot lose Joe Linton to injury. If he picks up a strain or a knock or gets done, we just can't afford to lose him going into that final, knowing that Bruno is going to come back. Yeah, okay, he'll have been rested, but he's also going to be a bit, he's not going to be match sharp necessarily, because he would have missed a bit of game time. I think that's the way that Anderson gets the game for me. But I don't know. It's just an impossible decision. But ultimately, for me, it's all about the cup final. And I'd take losing 5-0 on Saturday, and I couldn't give a shit who played if it meant that we, won a scruffy 1-0 the following Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, mate. I think that the cup final is definitely the game. I mean, that game defines the season, really, whichever way you look at it. And if we win that game, the season's incredible, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I do think that the likes of Anderson may get a chance against Liverpool, but I agree with you, Di. I think he's maybe not quite ready for it yet. He maybe needs a season out on loan in the Championship at a decent level develop his game a little bit more, from what he did at Bristol Rovers. But just a couple of comments before we move on to the next one there. So BT saying we need to play our strongest 11 available for all games, including the game against Liverpool, subject to injuries. I do not see Anderson in our strongest 11, which is fair enough. But again, I think the final is more important. Carl's in the comments. Good to see you, Carl. Hope you're well, pal. We can't go in half-hearted, in my opinion, if we lose a player. So be it. To coin the phrase, I say in case of our play Joe Linton. And we've got... Go on. Sorry, PK, what you saying, bud?
You can't play your strongest team every single week. This is what's got us into the sort of drop-in form that we've got at the moment.
Yeah.
We need a bigger squad. We haven't got that bigger squad. At some point, you've got to decide, let me give two or three of these players a rest, and let's bring in Anderson. God, let's not bring in Murphy, but let's bring in Murphy. Let's give, Gordon a run out on the left, or let's rest Miggy or whatever. Miggy looked knackered again. I know he got a goal, but he looks knackered. He's playing every single game. You cannot play them all the time. You just can't do it.
Well, Williams throwing a little bit of a grenade in there, saying top 4 a cup. He's saying top 4 cups will come, but top 4 transforms us financially. Yeah, I think fair play, William. You're right what you're saying financially, but yeah, it's a cup for me all day long. I think, my God, I've been dying to see Newcastle United win a cup ever since I was born. So if I could see that in my lifetime, mate, I'd be absolutely buzzing. But I do tend to agree with Di on the squad depth. I think letting Shelby go was a massive mistake. I know it was a great deal for the player, but in hindsight, I think it was a really bad mistake. And not bringing in midfield cover is definitely going to come back and bite us in the arse a bit here. So let's just hope Willock is back for the final. Bruno's back. Joe Linton's back firing, and we've got a really good chance. But moving on to the next topic, which I know is a little bit fiery, is this topic. So BDB, no LB. This is all me who wanted to throw this one in here. We did a poll on Twitter, and it was as close as Brexit about whether Big Dan Burn should play at left back or not. I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to pass it over to. I think Di's itching to have me on this one, but I'm going to pass it over here. So
I think we both are, mate.
I am on the menu tonight. Curry's on the menu tonight. So just looking at some of Dan Burn's stats. Now, my biggest thing with Burn, before I get any further, I love Dan Burn. He's brilliant. He's a great character. He's a great, ambassador for the club, servant. Diehard Geordie. Great defender. Throws his body on the line for everything. But I think he is now being targeted as a weak link at left back for us. And that could be to do with who's in front of him, possibly. You've taken away Willock, you've taken away Joe Linton. He's not got that cover. Maxie's couldn't cover anything. If you took one of his bandages off, he couldn't cover it. So maybe he is getting a little bit exposed. But just looking at some of Dan Burn's stats here over 90 minutes over the last year. Now it's the progressive play that really gets me with Dan Burn. So progressive carries, he's not even doing one a game. So he's in the 52 percentile of left backs. Pass completion, he's at 79%. So he's at a 15 percentile of a left back. Passes attempted, he's at the 21 percentile. Progressive passes received, he's in the 87th percentile, but doesn't do much with it when he gets it. Tackles, he's in the 30th percentile. Interceptions, 33. But clearances, he's up in the 91 percentile. And my opinion is that's because he's a centre-back playing left-back, and I don't think this experiment is going to work much longer. And what really concerns me is he's been caught short a couple of times by some rank average players in Southampton and in Bournemouth. If we get to the weekend and Mo Salah licks his chops and goes for him, if we get to the cup final and Anthony or Sancho, who's got himself a goal last couple of weeks, wants to try and get a bit of confidence back, maybe even Rashford goes out to that side, my worry is that Dan Burn will get targeted and he will get folded inside and out by a winger with a bit of pace and a little bit of trickery to him. Di, lick your chops, get stuck into me, get your knife and fork out, mate. Am I being too harsh? What am I doing?
You're being more than fucking harsh, mate. I think life on the road is messing with your head. I think to look at some of your stats there. First of all, you're talking about a lot of the things you're talking about there are a thing for him with the ball. His game is not with the ball, and I appreciate that some of the things you said there aren't are off the ball as well. So that's fair enough. Yeah. But I'm going to ask you a couple of quick fire questions, if you don't mind, Chris. Can you tell me, for all the targeting apparently of Dan Burn, when was the last time do you reckon he was responsible for a goal?
Ooh, do you know what, off the top of my head, him responsible for, well, if you say fully responsible for a goal, he was at fault in the corner at the weekend against Bournemouth. He didn't pick up that flick on header. That was his man. So he did play his part in that. But fully responsible for a goal, I'd probably say, was it the Chelsea game or Everton game last season?
I think the last time, looking back through it, the last time he was responsible for a goal, we lost 5-1 to Brentford. We beat Brentford 5-1, sorry. And he conceded the penalty, kind of got under the ball, jumped up. His arms were a bit by his side. Tony headed it down, even with his back to goal, even with his back to the ball. Sorry, the ball just kind of hit his arm as he went out. I'm not entirely sure I'm calling that responsible. I would say it's definitely Isak's responsibility to go with his man on the weekend.
I agree with that. To be fair, Isak was really fault for that, yeah.
And I would say you could probably make the argument that maybe against West Ham, when the balls come across, someone flicks on at the near post. It's not his man, but there's a chance that he could be a tiny bit quicker and maybe nick the ball away before Trippier loses his man. Maybe if you're being harsh. That was on the 8th of October, 2022. Since we have conceded that goal, we have conceded 4 more goals. I just do not understand in what world that is anything that requires a change. I mean, we are transformed the football team, I think. And is he the long-term answer and solution to all of our problems? No. Is he a left back? When he's a centre back, sorry, playing at left back, he probably is. But I just cannot fault anything that the lad has done for us. No one, Trippier was at fault for the goal against West Ham, for example. No one's asking him to come off. I just think it's an absolute nonsense. And I think he's just not been aided in any way by the players in front of him. Obviously, St. Max recently has completely hindered his ability to get forward and contribute in an attacking way. When he did get forward last in an attacking way, in a regular basis, he scored one of the most important goals in our recent history against Leicester. I've got more stuff to argue with you in a bit in terms of possible replacements, but I'll let PK have a go.
Well, see, my point, yeah, just before PK comes in there, but listen, I do love Dan Burn. I do think he's been brilliant for us, right? But my concern with him is, and not just about getting caught out a little bit with players with speed, he seems to have a bit of a blind spot over his shoulder at the minute. People are getting in behind him, and you're right, that might be because he's not got the cover in front of him, and he's having to maybe watch 2 runs at the same time, and that's a big issue. But do you not think we're becoming a little bit more one-dimensional? Now, you mentioned Trippier. If Trippier has a stinker defensively, because he offers so much going forward, all the outlet goes through Trippier. Every single pass and cross and move that we do, Trippier is heavily involved in it. There's nothing really from the left-hand side from Burn. PK, just to get your take on that, is when we're playing against teams like Bournemouth and Southampton and teams like that, I know we beat Southampton in the cup, but when we're playing against these lesser teams, right, that we should really be stepping onto and going at, do you not think we need a little bit more from left back than just what Dan Burn's doing, mate, and maybe put a cross in once in a while?
Look, we know that he's not offensively your stereotypical left back, right? Matt Target is a better left back going forward. But whatever you say, however you want to cover it up, we've got the best defensive record in the Premier League. We've got the second best defensive record in Europe. I don't know if that's still the case. I haven't conceded one at the weekend. Apart from, I think Barcelona have conceded 5-6 goals all season. We've conceded, whatever it is now, 13 or 14. He's not good enough going forward. He's not our long-term left-back answer. Eddie Howe in his press conference last week before Bournemouth said he sees him now as a left-back more than a centre-half. Eddie Howe's not stupid. Again, he butters all his players up in terms of bigging them up and making them feel 6'7" tall or whatever Dan Burn is. He's... I was at Old Trafford, and in that second half, Anthony ripped him a new one. He ran rings round him.
Yeah,
the first half at the Emirates, that's 45 minutes, an isolated 45 minutes. Lee was with me in that game. Arsenal away at the Emirates in the first half, Saka ripped him a new arsehole, didn't he? Until he got to grips with him. Second half, he was a lot better. The problem Dan Burn has got, and you won't be saying this if it wasn't for St. Maximin being out on the far left. It sounds like I'm ASM bashing here. I'm a massive fan of St. Maximin, but Eddie Howe doesn't really trust him. He won't do the hard yards, and he doesn't track back enough, and that's why Dan Burn looks a bit isolated. To waffle on again about and actually answer your question this time, doesn't give us enough going forward. I totally get that. Trippier can run a game from that right back position, can't he? There's not many fullbacks can do that. Trent can do that on his day sometimes. not many footballers in English football can do that. So it's very difficult to compare him to Kieran Trippier, who is a world-class fullback. But I'll go back to where I started. He's in the best defensive unit in the Premier League. Why do you take him out? And if you do take him out, who the hell do you take him out for? Target's not fit. He's not fully fit. I like him. Excuse me. I like him going forward, Matt Target. But defensively, I don't think he's as solid as Dan Burn. I really don't. But that's my tuppence.
It's a fair question. Di wants to come back in and have another go at me here, but to be fair, Di, before you do, and the point you make that I totally valid, mate. You've always said that Dan Burn's never the long-term answer. You've always said that ever since we've talked about Dan Burn when we signed him. I think maybe there is a lot of truth in the exposed nature of what he's got in front of him now, and it's maybe unfairly putting him under the microscope from a lot of supporters, myself included. You know what I mean? It's I'm not back in my box yet, Mr. Forster. I've got plenty more fight to keep, mate. Don't you worry about that. But Di, go on, what was your point, mate? You wanted to raise about Burn again?
I think there's just two things more from me, and then I promise I'll stop being a dog with a bone. I think all the examples you've given there about Saka and Anthony, we still didn't concede a goal in those games. We still didn't lose either of those games. So even if he has had a bad game there, which I still think would be a bit harsh in terms of a full 90 minutes, it still didn't cost us anything. At the minute, our alternatives are non-existent, right? Some of the things you kind of posted in our group, possibility of playing Ashby at right back and Trippier at left back. Ashby I don't think has played. Well, he's definitely not played in the Premier League this season. I don't think he's played Premier League football once. Paul Dummett has played one full 90 minutes since the 23rd of May 2021. Absolutely no chance. I've got better calves than him. The possibility.
I've seen your calves.
I wouldn't embarrass myself.
Lovely calves. Lovely calves.
The possibility of moving three at the back, whilst that is something that I don't think Howe would do, the alternative option there is maybe bringing Miggy back, playing him as a left wing back at a point where we're struggling to score goals. I think taking an extra attacking player out and playing them as wing back is madness. I think ultimately we could have a bit of a conversation about it, perhaps, if Matt Target was fully fit. I think then it would be a potential conversation. I also think that the big key thing for me is as well how massively values loyalty within his teams, and I think it would be terrible leadership if he's maybe had one bad game. He made that error toward the end against Bournemouth, and it would be terrible leadership if Howe said, "I know we're a week away from the cup final, son, but you're out for me." I just don't think that is helpful to anyone or anything in the longer term. And whether we like it or not, our next priorities in terms of players we buy isn't going to be a left back. We need at least two good centre midfielders. We definitely need another centre forward, and that's before we're even looking at possibly a backup centre half, and then maybe left backs. So I also think that there's a longer term picture here. If you shatter the boys' confidence bringing him out because of one mistake, I think, or a couple of bad iffy games, and I don't personally think he's been that bad, I think it's massively detrimental long term as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not digging him out. I think I'm just a bit concerned that some of the gaps that have been left in behind him, and maybe, to be fair, you're right, it is the lack of cover he's had in front of him. And if either one of us are playing left back and we had an absolute machine in Joe Linton covering our arse the way he covers the ground, you take him away, all of a sudden you'd be thinking, fucking hell, what's going on here? I've got 4 or 5 players running at us. What the fuck's going on? And it maybe is a little bit of that. And I think it's because, for me, probably maybe unfairly, and I think a lot of the supporters might be the same mindset, because he's been played out of position. It's almost in your head. You may be looking at it a bit more
waiting for the
detail than you should be. Like if Isaac was out wide, for example, and he was having a stinker, you go, well, he's a striker. Why is he out wide? And you'd start focusing on the fact that he's out of position. But I mean, I do agree with you, lads. I don't think Howe will drop him, and I think certainly for the final, there's no way he'll drop him, because not for nothing, but having Longstaff and Byrne, the Geordie boys, in that team and getting the lads up and telling them how important that game is, if they even need to be told, is probably a massive part of the team morale. I mean, I do agree with William. I think a left back might be something to look at in the summer if there's something wrong with Target, because Target's been a bit in and out. Even when he was fit, PK, he wasn't getting in. Was he overburn?
Yeah, he was fit
right there.
He was fit at the beginning of the season, Target, I think, and he picked up a slight knock. And the thing with Dan Burn is, since he signed in January, I can only recall one league game where he hasn't started since January 2022. Statman, if he is watching, Statman might tell me something different. I'm pretty sure he's not. He came on as a sub in one game. I can't remember who it was. It was at home when Target started, and he had Botman and Cher, I think, as the two centre halves. I may be wrong, but I do think actually the one thing I maybe disagree with Dye is, depending on where we finish at the end of the season, will depend on how much cash we've got to spend. Right? I do think left back will be a priority. I think that number 6/4/4 will be that real priority. It's not 6, it's a 4, but I think a left back will be a priority. Dummett will be gone. Matty Target, he hasn't been fit all season, unfortunately. And Dan Burn's 30, by the way. Shouldn't forget, he's never going to be long term, is he? Anyway,
yeah, true.
He's had an amazing season this season for us. He's going to get his suit measured, which is fantastic. There's some flags going down to Wembley with that on, apparently.
That is mid, by the way.
You cannot drop the poor lad because he's got to get his suit done. You know what I mean?
Exactly. As long as he doesn't show up with a Sam Smith suit, mate, that'll be a bit of a head turner in the final.
But
that's what PK's wearing to the cup final. Mind, he's got his Sam Smith outfit sorted.
Yeah, I've got my outfit sorted. Don't you worry about that, kids. He's not. Excuse me. He's not going to be our long-term solution, Dan Burn. But he's going to play in a cup final. If he's a rotating squad player next season, he'd be happy with that at 31, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
exactly. I do like Lee's comment, but spending 600 quid on two centre midfielders in the summer. So we'll get Milinkovic, Savic, and Rice. But just before we move off the Dan Burn subject here, lads, there was some stories going around, whether you believe it or not. I think it was from Football Insider. So I think I said on the Morning Magpie, Salt Bay hasn't got enough salt to take with that publication. But there's rumours that apparently there's a huge financial package being put together for a number 6, a Bruno partner. I was a bit mischievous, Di, and said Declan Rice. If there is a big deal to be done for a number 6 or 4, as PK would say, who would you fancy on that role, mate? Is Rice the kind of guy you think you'd go for, or is it a case of we just wouldn't get him because bigger clubs would come in?
Obviously, now Joe Allen has retired from international football. I think it gives him more.
We Joe Allen.
No. Do you know what, mate? I honestly don't know. I think that's such a tough question. I think players like that, a quality level, are such a premium you have to pay. And personally, I'm not a massive fan of Declan Rice. I think if we want to go and improve and be a regular top 4 contender, for me, I don't think Rice is there. I don't think he's good enough. But I appreciate. I'm in the minority there. I'm not saying he's not a good footballer. I'm saying if we want to play top 4 football every year, I don't think he's good enough. Is my take on it. I don't think he's consistent enough to be there. My honest answer is I don't know, which I appreciate is super helpful on a football podcast. But
you worked for Steve Bruce for years, mate. Don't worry about it.
That's very true, mate. Very true. Go to PK, and I'll have a little think. But for me, I think Rice would spend too much money on Rice for what we would get out of him, in my view.
PK, you pulled a face when he said Rice wasn't good enough, mate. I take it you're the other way. I think
Rice was the best player on the pitch against us week on Saturday. I thought he was absolutely outstanding, and he pulled West Ham from being 1-0 down on about 90 seconds to draw in that game almost single-handed. I thought he was absolutely bloody brilliant. I think he looks outstanding for England whenever he plays. And if we get him and we get him on the show, we can have Curry and Rice.
Hey.
No chance.
That's so Partridge.
That's pure Partridge. That, but you say that for your other channel, mate.
Thanks, mate. What other channel?
you might need to crack some jokes on that channel, mate. I think just to lighten the mood a little bit.
Cheers, but we're not allowed to talk about that, are we?
No, we're not talking about that. That's like Lord Voldemort, mate. We don't talk about that. I think for me, the problem is with Rice, you'll end up paying that English premium. And it'll be a massively overinflated price for the boy. And I just think that, I think he is a good player. He's kind of turned my opinion around on him. I just think he was really overrated. But I did watch him at close quarters against us, PK, and I agree with you. I thought he was immense. He just looks superb. I mean, even when Joe Linton went on him, he still looked really, really good. And Joe was brilliant that game. But I think if you're looking for maybe a cheaper alternative, you've got the boy Caicedo from Brighton who didn't go to Arsenal. You know, he'd be up for grabs. You've also
I don't know how much cheaper he would be.
Well, you got Alvarez as well from Ajax, you know, who's a really good number 6. I think he would be a cracking buy for us. People even threw a name in there, which is a familiar name, was Mikel Merino, who obviously was at Newcastle a while ago, then went back to Sociedad, wasn't it? And he's been absolutely superb for him. He's really kicked on as a player. And he loves Newcastle, the way he talks about us and everything else. And coming back into that fold, a more experienced player, a better player, and a player who's more solidified in the position that he's in. I think Mikel Merino next to Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton would just, my God, that would be mouth-watering midfield there. Have you got any more ideas, Di? I've just thrown a couple of names for you there. But
I knew there was what I talk about on the chat all the time, and a name was on the tip of my tongue. Just couldn't get there. I've obviously watched a lot of Dutch football over here, and the boy Sangare, who plays for PSV Eindhoven, I really rate him. I've watched him a lot of times in European games, and obviously in the Eredivisie. I think he's a really good dynamic player. I think he's good with his feet. I think he's strong. I think he's good in the air. He can get forward. He can score goals. I really, really like him. I also think that the boy McAllister was the other one I quite liked at Brighton. I think
he's a lot of money. World Cup winner, mate. He'll be a lot of money.
Probably, but I still think he'd be cheaper than Rice. And in terms of the quality there, and just to be clear with Rice, I'm not saying I don't think he's a very good player. Sorry, he's obviously good at football, and I agree that, you know, like PK said, he was the best player on the pitch 2 weeks ago. But I just mean in terms of if we're aiming for top 4 and we want to stay there every year, for me, I don't think he's consistent enough. I don't think he produces that sort of performance every single week. And I think if he did, someone would have already had a go at him by now. Is my 10 pence worth. But yeah, Sangare at PSV or Christ, I've forgotten his name already. McAllister. There you go. Those are the two I'd like to see us have a sniff at.
I think Alexis McAllister. I think Alexis McAllister is an outstanding footballer. I think he's more of an attacking midfielder, though, isn't he, than that sort of 4 or 6.
So Bruno would have to go back, wouldn't he? Which is not what they want to do. By the sound of the club, want Bruno to go forward and have somebody to stay.
Yeah. Do they, though? I think the fans want him to go forward. They signed him as a defensive midfielder, Bruno. I mean, he had no goal record whatsoever.
Yeah.
Has anybody at the club said we want Bruno to be further forward? I'm not sure they have. I think there's been some journo whispers around going balls deep for a defensive midfielder. I mean, the one name that springs to mind, who's if he had been fully fit, full stop, is still N'Golo Kante for me. Now he's getting on a bit, but my God, him in his prime, he would be your ideal player to sit there and allow Bruno and Joe Linton and Willock and Longstaff to rotate and move further forward, wouldn't he? He would be your top boy for me. Well, for me.
That's what Ashworth is here to do, isn't it? To find Kantes, to find those players. Yeah. You know, he did a hell of a job at Brighton. I mean, some of the signings they made, my God, these players they found out of nowhere. And yes, you got to credit Potter and the current manager, whose name slightly escapes me, but you've got to credit those guys for what they've done with those players and help them evolve as players, you know. But people like Dan Ashworth and his scouting network, you know, go and finding them for buttons, really, you know, like Leicester did, you know, with Mahrez and guys like that as well. You know, these are the kind of scouts you want in the club. You want to find these players, and then obviously, you know, kick on from there with them. You know, so just a couple of comments coming in. Leah said Marino was good, but similar to the other players, i.e. Shelby, we'll remember him through rose-tinted glasses. Shelby used to turn into Xavi in the eyes of fans when he'd been out for a few months. That is very true, very true. And Roger saying Ashworth hopefully may surprise us all, which is exactly what it is. PK, you had one more point to make on this, mate, before we move on.
Yeah, the other point, I was at the our friends True Faith had their journalists talking last Tuesday night, and Craig Hope, I thought they were all saying the same thing. Hope, Colkin, and friend of our show, his name? I've had such
Keith
a bad
Downey.
name.
Your mate Keith
Downey. Such a long name, I mate Keith. They all said the same thing, particularly Colkin and Hope, that they're not in the market for signing players who are top price. They're in the market for finding the Bruno Guimaraes, the Sven Botmans, and making them world-class footballers, not necessarily buying ready-made world-class footballers, because there's no value in it, particularly with financial fair play. And I think that's a really good point. You know, if we're looking for those perhaps those Alvarez's who we can make better footballers might be more sensible signings than paying 100 million quid for Declan Rice. I guess that's what they're thinking and their points were. And I think they've got a point.
Yeah, that's a fair point, mate. It's a fair point. Well, moving on to the next section, we kind of touched on it a little bit anyway, lads. You know, there's a lot of injuries in the squad. Possibly, would there be a change of shape in this? There's been a few comments about it there. You mentioned a couple of comments there as well. Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, we get the weekend, and you know, obviously we've got no Willock, which looks like we will have no Willock. Maybe we've got no Maxi potentially as well. But let's just say that both Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak are fit to play. Do you go for two up front, maybe put Isak behind Wilson like you did against Fulham that we were all at? Or do you stick to the 4-3-3?
I would go with a 4-2-3-1 just because of the necessity of how we're kind of situated at the minute with Willock injury and question marks over the few of the others. I also think for a team against Liverpool who are aging, I think is fair to say, and certainly aren't the quickest at the back anymore. I think to get those attacking players on the pitch, run at them, scare them a bit, try and pin them back a bit and utilize the spaces that they will leave behind when they attack, especially in the fullback areas, is a big thing for me. I see Isak as being so good at making links between our midfield and an attack. And, he wants to run into channels. He wants to get after the ball. He wants to bring other people into play. And there was a couple of times on the weekend, he kind of did make a run and the ball didn't get there, or he did run onto the ball and he turned around and there was no one near him. I think having someone like Wilson around him would help. But ultimately, I think it will be a necessity to change the shape if ahead of Wembley, because I don't see Willock getting rushed back in. So for me, I think we will have to change shape. I also think he's hinted at that change of shape a couple of times when we've kind of needed a goal. And I think he'll probably look at Saturday in a way as almost a shot to nothing, because fundamentally, no one will care if we lose on Saturday. I mean, we'd be pissed off at the time, but the real reality comes the week after. And I think if we have a go at them, I think the one thing for me is I think we need to score a goal, in a proper goal. I know we scored on the weekend, but I think we need to go out and have a good team goal and kind of be expressive and attacking and dynamic and creative. And I think the only way we do that is by getting these people on the pitch. And for me, Isak knits things together very, very well. I agree with what Lee's saying in the comments there. I think the pace will be the thing that does for them on the weekend, and I think we've got to be dynamic. For me, I would have Gordon out on the left, with Isak as the 10 sort of thing, and Wilson up top, because I think Gordon will work harder and will support your mate Dan Burn at left back. So I think that's what I would do. But as with all of these things, I don't know.
What a great insightful show we've had tonight, guys.
You are welcome.
A couple of things. Cue Dan Burn to get man of the match just to fucking shut me over the weekend.
I'm going to stick a 10 on him to score on Saturday.
Like a diving header from 30 yards. And then also, in terms of us getting beat at the weekend, my God, I do not want to see that clippity-clop Turkish teeth bastard punch in the air at St. James's Park. So please, for the love of God, lads, do not lose that game. PK, do you agree with Lee in the comments, mate? Do you think 4-4-2 could work, mate, or not?
I don't think he's going to go 4-4-2. I don't think he's going to change 4-3-3. But I think that 4. I might have to. It's been a long day. I might have mentioned this. It's 4-2-3-1.
What have you been doing, mate? Have you been going like Lang's End to John O'Groats today?
He's just done a full day's work for the first time in about 3 weeks. That's what I reckon.
Done a full day's work for the first time in an age today. Yeah, it's been a tough one.
That's what Dan Burn says when Max is in front of him. It's been a long fucking day, lads.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm 5'5", not 6'7", but I'm the Dan Burn of this podcast, right? 4-2-3-1 is 10 players. That works because you've got Longstaff and Joe Linton sitting in, and then of course you've potentially got say Maximum Gordon or Isaac, or you've got Isaac.
Some of the other lads
Gordon out left. You've got Isaac sitting behind Wilson if Wilson's fit, and you've got Miggy out on the right again. There's some options with that. Yeah, will he do it? No, he won't do it. He's 4-3-3. He's played 19, 20, 21 games this season, whatever, and he's gone 4-3-3 for every single one of them. He's going 4-3-3 again on Saturday, but I still think we kill them. If we win, if we're going to win, we need to score one more goal than them.
Very Michael Owen-esque tonight, lads. If we want to, we need to score a goal if we want to win. Dyer said, and you said we need to score one more goal than them. So
I'm not sure Dyer or I are going to be allowed back on this show, to be honest.
Do you know what? I'm going to lose it at BT Sports at this rate, such as the quality of the punditry, lads, tonight. So just looking at the comment there from Sean, he said the team talk is simple, lads. If we play the last 2 games, we lose. Lee saying Klopp getting a new job with Colgate. Absolutely. I love a bit of that. Take every game as it comes, says Lee. And Coin says, I can see the team shifting between formations throughout. That'd be interesting. I mean, I think the big question really is Wilson going to be fit, which seems to be the question we ask quite a lot these days. But if Wilson is fit, I do agree with Dyer. I think you maybe see Isak kind of in that more free role, potentially either side of Wilson. But I mean, you could potentially see if Wilson can't make it, maybe Isak through the middle, Gordon and Miggy either side of him. I think Miggy will be all right, even though he looked shattered against Bournemouth. He only got his hand stamped on, didn't he? So I don't think he's really that badly injured as opposed to.
I think he's injured.
No. I think it all depends on, Maxi. I mean, I still can't get my head around the injury he had anyway, to be fair. It didn't even look like he got hurt at all, unless his legs are made of flumps, like I said in the comment before.
He's not injured. I'm telling you, he's not injured.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, and Mark made a good point, we were talking about this the other day, that, out of all the players to give a free role, maybe behind the striker, if Wilson isn't fit, maybe Maxi in like a 10 role behind Isak, where he can do the most damage. Where Maxi, because if you don't pin Maxi down to one particular side, he'd be a nightmare to Mark Dyer, wouldn't he, in that free role? I mean, imagine being a defender trying to deal with that.
I think the other thing, and I know we keep talking about the cup final, is he can't use Gordon in the cup final. So yes. in the very, very short term, he has to do absolutely everything he can to get something out of Maxi. And I think if that is put him through the middle as a 10, put him out wide and convince him to do some of the hard work he seems quite reticent to want to do, any of those things, I think he has to do something to get the best out of him. And I think to drop Maxi, even though it's what I would like to see, I don't think he's going to do it because he knows he needs one more week out of him. So I think he needs him to be match sharp. I think he needs him to be energetic and feel part of that starting group. And I think ultimately for a week or so, he needs to massage his ego a little bit. So I think Maxi has to play and will play for that reason.
Yeah, I think you might be right, lads. I mean, it certainly will be an interesting one, I think, kind of moving forward with the lineup. It might just be a case of we have to kind of really pick what we've got, really, just kind of make do with it. But Mark is a huge fan of you guys' punditry tonight. He says, move over Kieran Dyer, which I must admit, you two should get the call from Sky, with some of the crack you've come out with tonight. It's certainly much better than Kieran Dyer. But as PK has reminded you, it's been a long day, several times.
Exactly.
I think that might be a new T-shirt, PK.
There you go. It's been a long
day by PK.
I'm talking shit.
I just got too excited with my Dan Burn chat. I saved up all my energy for that. I peaked too soon. Story of my life.
You'll be slamming the cupboard door later, and the missus will be going, "What's the matter with you, fucking Chris Dan Burn?" So we got Alan in the comments saying Miggy might have bandages. More bandages on ASM, but he's all right. Absolutely, yeah. I think, I mean, we need a big game from Maxi, but it's funny with Maxi because the bigger the team, the bigger the performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you think about it, he does seem to show up against the big boys, and because I think he almost wants to show he's on that level. So really, if you give ASM that free role and he's got a chance to try and outshine Salah and stuff like that, you probably grab it with both hands. To be fair, so I think you might be right there. I think ASM might be up for this game.
I think as well, looking at. Sorry, the Man City game was another great example of that earlier in the year as well. Go on, PK. Sorry.
He had a worldie against Man City with three assists. Exactly that time. That's me.
It's been a long day.
You are tired today. It's been a long day, lads. It's been a long day. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll segue into the Liverpool game before PK falls asleep behind the wheel here because he's dribbling a little bit. He's going to start snoring on that headset soon. Ground control to Major Tom. So Liverpool up next time. We've talked a little bit about that. I suppose just your gut feeling on the result, mate. I know you said it doesn't really matter, but again, just try and visualize that smarmy bastard with his big grin, punch in the air. Come on, mate. You said it doesn't matter, but come on, you don't want to see that, do you? You don't want to see that.
I mean, of course not. I think the one thing that does really matter is goals. I think that we have to be able to score more than one goal in a game. I think having that confidence boost is important to us. As PK very rightly says, if we do score one more than them, we've got a very good chance of winning the game. So, great logic.
Brilliant. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. I think as a consequence, we have to just go at them. And you're right. I don't want to see. PK looks like he's going to explode here. PK,
He really is.
your head is going as red as the wallpaper behind you, mate. You've got to be careful.
Wallpaper, it's paint, man.
Oh, sorry. Posh. So I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah. So if we're gonna, I think we need to go at them. I think scoring goals for our confidence is the most important thing. Obviously, if we do that, we've got a good chance of winning. I'm not even sure. This has been a terrible podcast today, isn't it? This has been great, but I've talked so much.
Speak for yourself, lads. I'm trying to carry this. I feel like Joe Linton in the midfield here, lads. I'm trying to carry this whole thing.
The long and short of it is, we've got to score some goals. I think that's really important that we boost our confidence before next week. I think they're not a particularly quick team. I think they'll leave spaces in behind them, and I think in the same way that when we played against Man City at home, I think they will leave us spaces. And I think we were used to, in the last few weeks, teams sitting in and kind of grinding or trying to grind us down. I think Liverpool aren't going to do that. They're going to come at us. And I think it's really, really important that we kind of exploit that and make the most of that. And I think that will suit us more than the games we've been saying recently. And I think that gives us our best chance of going on and grabbing a couple of goals, which, as I may have mentioned, is quite important in football.
Prediction, mate? Little prediction, Dan, for the weekend?
I'm going to say 2-2. I don't think we'll win the game. I think we'll have another draw, but I'd be very happy with a 2-2 as long as we have a go at them,
Absolutely, absolutely. Just before we cover you, PK, Alan's just said the last 3 games will determine our season. Win them and the lads will be flying, lose them and we'll be on a bit of a downer. Hopefully it won't be as severe as that. But if you've pulled yourself around, PK, because I know it's been a long day, what's your gut feeling about the weekend, mate? Are you confident? Do you think we're going to get a win before the final mix? I think we could do one, as Di says.
I'm going to give you a Lee Forster kind of one. I'm not massively confident about Saturday night. I'm really sorry. I know Lee is...
You spent too much time with him recently, mate. It's knocked your confidence here. Come on. You used to be braver than this, mate.
I did. Lee's shaking like a shitting dog at the thought of playing Liverpool. I think the one thing we've got is we've got revenge on our minds. They're the only team who have beaten us in the league this season, and we should have been 2-0 up with Isak's second goal, which was, Midgey's arse away from being onside, right? And a brilliant finish. And we were bloody damned unlucky not to beat them. But, they've got a few players coming back now. Now, whether they can hit the ground running, Liverpool, I don't know. It'll be a red hot atmosphere, man, win it under the lights. And the fans will be massively up for it. We get that first goal, I think we'll beat them. If the longer it goes on, I think, with our difficult... Thanks, Lee, in the comments there. With our difficult, we're fucking knackered. It's been a long day. We're fucking knackered as players. I think they could potentially pick us off with the pace they've got going forward because Nunes is fast as fuck. Okay, can't hit the fucking a cow's arse with a banjo. Salah's direct and he's quick and he's up against Dan Burn. We know that. Sorry, Chris, but
He'll mark him out of the game, mate. He's brilliant. He's the best left back in the league, mate, to be fair.
You're right, mate. Yeah. Fuck it. Fuck it. It's going to be 3-0. Let's have them. Callum Wilson hat-trick. 3 out. 3 out. God, I love it, mate. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. But no, it's to be fair, I mean, I think William made a really good point there as well about we'll tend to forget that Liverpool have got Real Madrid in the Champions League on a Tuesday as well, so they'll have one eye on that as well. Because, I mean, they're looking like Bob Hope and no hope to finish in the top 4 the way they're playing. So, maybe win the Champions League might be the only chance they've got to get back into the Champions League potentially this season. Is that still, do you still get a space if you win it this season or not? Is that changed?
I think you do, yeah. I think you do.
Yeah.
I also think the only thing I will say is to counter that ever so slightly is that if they beat us on Saturday, they're 6 points behind us with a game in hand.
Yeah.
So I do think we're saying they're out of it. This is a huge game for them. Definitely bigger than it is for us, probably in the reality. But this is a big game for them in terms of trying to get a hold on that top 4 if they don't win the Champions League, which I don't see them doing in a million years. So I think if they're gonna get in the top 4, they have to beat us. And I think this is a huge chance for them. Possibly, as I say, 6 points behind with the game in hand is it puts them in quite a threatening position all of a sudden. So I think that we can't lose is the big thing here. Like I say, the result is neither here nor there ultimately, but I think we just can't lose.
No, exactly. I think Lee's called it a 4-0 victory with Dan Burn getting all four, putting me right in my place. I'll tell you what, Lee, if that happens, we will have a chat in the group about some kind of a forfeit, mate. I really can't see that. That's how confident I am.
Said that on air now. You can pin that.
I didn't say what a forfeit was, did I? It's been a long day, as PK has said several times. I really hope Eddie Howe doesn't replace intensity as our identity with "it's been a long day," PK. So please don't try and raise that when you have your next stadium meeting with Darren Eales, because it doesn't sound as catchy, I've got to say. But just
Never
my
met
take
Darren
on
Eales.
well, that's it, mate. Well, but my take on the Liverpool game, just before we sign off, lads, to me, I think William's got a good point. I think they'll have one eye on Real Madrid. I think Klopp will move his squad around a little bit. I agree with Dye. I think that there's some aging legs in there. We've got some real pace, some real energy with Gordon, with Isak, with Miggy. The way Trippier goes up and down that right hand side as well, I think will cause them some issues. They leave gaps at the back as well. Lesser teams than us have exploited those gaps. I think if Isak plays, whether he starts through the middle or whether he's out wide, he'll still have the confidence of how much he ripped them to pieces in his debut. I think he'll be pumped. His chest will be out. He'll be wanting to go up against them again. Van Dijk didn't even start the Merseyside derby. He was on a bench, didn't he? So they're kind of patched together a little bit, Liverpool. So for me, I'm kind of going with Roger there. I think 2-1 to Newcastle, and for me, I agree with Dye. It's absolutely paramount that we get a win, bounce into the final, because we need to have that winning feeling. We need to have that buzz, that confidence to go into that game, knowing that we can win a game, we can beat a team, that many people might not give as much of a chance against, But the final is only 90 minutes of football. Not to sound like you two, it is only 90 minutes of football. And anything can be done in one singular game. Form's out the window, really. So if the lads turn up. Game of two halves, If the lads turn up at Wembley, they turn up at Wembley and they put in the shift that we know they can, then we could win that game regardless if we haven't won the game beforehand. But yeah, for me, I'm going 2-1 against Liverpool. I think they're there for the taking. I know we're a little bit patched up, but I think we'll have enough to beat them. Absolutely. So I won't put that comment up there from Alan PK, because it's about the thing that you hate the most. So
there's no ticket talks on this show. No ticket talks.
No. We don't talk about tickets in the Disney style song, as PK was about to sing there with the piano. So that's us all done. Me and Dye are off to buy helium tanks for PK's Wembley suit. He's going for a lie down because it's been a long day. But just thank you very much to everybody who's joining the comments today. We really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, smash that button, come and subscribe. Loads of room for you here. Normally, we're not as delirious as this. PK normally has a shorter day than he's had. But great show, lads. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody in the comments. We're going to be back with some more Evermore. Probably me and Mark with what's going on Monday, because we won't be doing a post-match for the Liverpool game. But I might jump back on and do a bit of a preview. So keep it Evermore, guys. Let's keep supporting that team. We're core united. Dan Burn is the best left back in the league. You've heard it here first. So thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you later.
Ta-ra.
Cheers.
Cheers.